Please join me in welcoming back the director of The Hidden Driveway, Sarah Goodman, and the director of I Am a Good Person, I Am a Bad Person, Ingrid Veninger. I think both Ingrid and Sarah would like to invite some cast members up, so I'm going to hand over the mic.
All right, first I just have to do some shout outs, and these are people that have not only collaborated with me on this film, but also on Only and Modra. If you could please stand up when I call out your name. First, Paul Syke, the designer of all the posters, an amazing graphic designer. Please stand up, Paul. And Kirsty, amazing makeup designer, and Krista, who dyed Hallie's hair for the movie. Please, Kirsty and Krista, please stand up. Christopher Oldfield, my agent for so many years, who I love and adore, and Jonathan Bunny, who's been an amazing tweeter and Facebooker and all-around social media awesome guy. Please, Jonathan and Chris, please stand up. I also want to thank Ingrid Hamilton and Tyler from GAT PR. I hope they're over there. And everyone that works with Deluxe. And now, you may remain anonymous or not, but if my headshots guys are in the house, it's your choice. You can stand up or not, but they are in the house. Did anybody stand? No. Oh yes! Carson! I also, please, want my mother and father and my husband, John Switzer, to please stand up. Okay, and now our crew is very small but mighty. I'm not going to bring them down, but I also want them to please stand up. My production crew of 3 people, cinematographer Benjamin Lichty, production sound recordist, Braden Sauter. Yeah, I mean, that was the crew. That was our 100% production crew, and then there was me and Hallie. In post, please, Jacob Thiessen, sound designer, stand up, and Eric Apps, mixer extraordinaire. And very importantly, my editor, Chris Wiseman, and assistant editor, Ann Feldman, please stand up. Thank you all for clapping. Now, I'd like to bring down my cast from Paris and first time in Toronto. I'll first bring down Susanna Mikitova and David Pesonti. Come on down. I don't know if they quite knew what they were getting into. Yes, please, David, come down. Also, Mathieu Chéneau. He played the magician in Modra, and he agreed to come back for this film. Simon Reynolds, my dear, dear friend, please come on down. My son, Jacob Switzer, please come on down. Braden Sauter, production sound recordist, and he played Jason in the film. Please come on down. And my daughter, Hallie Switzer. Please come on down.
All right, this is Sarah Goodman, the director of The Hidden Driveway.
Thank you. Well, I'm just trying to get my senses back after that amazing film. Yes, there's definitely a few people I'd like to bring down first. But before I do, I want to thank my family who are here, my mom, Ruth, and my dad, Mark. Can you guys stand up, too? And my brother, Josh, and his wife, Michelle. My other brother is in Turkey, David. And I also want to thank Catherine Kritma, who helped me tremendously during this film, so thank you so much to you. And now I'd like to bring down Sarah Zamet, the producer, and Brad Hart, the writer and creative partner of mine. And also I'd like to bring down the other actor in the film, George McFarlane. You may have noticed a commonality between both films. Yay, Jacob.
So we have some time now for questions. If you have a question, just put up your hand and try to speak as loudly and clearly as you can. I'm just going to start things off really quickly with a question for Sarah. Sarah, can you tell us a little bit how you came up with the idea for the film and how you went about casting Jacob?
Well, the first part of that question has to go to Brad.
The film Hidden Driveway comes vaguely from my own life. And my family, there were 3 family meetings that I can remember happening. 2 were that my parents were breaking up, and 1 was that my sister was being adopted. So there were family meetings, and there was sort of that tension of what might happen. So the film just kind of came out of that.
In the casting process, well, I had seen Jacob in only years ago on a plane, actually, and just loved him. And I had mentioned to Jason Knight, the casting director, that I really liked him, but I assumed that you would be union, so I never expected him to show up at the audition. And when I saw the list, and I just kind of freaked out, and Sarah was there, and she witnessed that. I couldn't believe it, and then when you walked into the room, I kind of knew the part was yours before you actually did anything. And then George came in too. And George was 2 years younger than what we had actually written the role for. And sometimes when you're a director, you're a bit like a control freak, and you feel like, no, the kid's got to be 11. But everyone around me was really excited about George, and we brought him back to the callback, and they stood there together because Jacob was very kind to come back, and I just looked at them together and I was like, oh, they're brothers. And that was that.
That's awesome, thank you. Any questions out there? Okay, see a hand back there. Yeah, it's you. Yeah.
I've been coming to film festivals for decades, and I've never seen a filmmaker give an introduction as wonderfully honest as what Ruby did at Arsenal. So in that spirit of honesty, why did you make this film?
I think everybody heard that question, yeah.
So why did I make this film? Okay, in all honesty, we were set to do some film festival tours with Modra in March. It was scheduled that we were going to go to Bradford to screen Modra. And Hallie was not that keen on coming because she was missing her boyfriend. And the flights were booked, you know. So I said, well, what if I paid for your boyfriend to come? And, paid for his accommodation, whatever. And she said, really? That would be amazing. So my wheels started turning. Well, if I'm paying for her boyfriend, he's an amazing musician. He and his friends, Evan and Solomon, composed the tail credit music. He is a recording engineer. He works in a recording studio. His father is a grip. He could shadow some, sound recorders and boom ops on set. John Switzer, my husband, was the recordist for Modra, so he could kind of mentor him. I thought this was end of January. He could be the production sound recordist. So if I just get a cinematographer, I have a production crew, and I can make another movie. So that's why it came out of wanting to make my daughter happy.
Good answer.
Any other questions out there? If you have a question, yeah, just wave so I can see you. Go ahead.
Ingrid, did someone come up to you and say, are you a good person or are you a bad person?
So did someone come up to you and say, are you a good person or are you a bad person?
No one actually ever came up and said that to me, but it was always in the script that I would walk around with that sign. And many times people came up to me recognizing me in Berlin saying, were you the person with that sign? So then I wanted a sort of trigger for the sign, and that came out of the production. I didn't, the wearing of the sign was just one of her many sort of things, and there were a few others. She was just trying to sort through her stuff, and so wearing the sign was kind of another performance art piece. But the question from the guy in the bar just was a spontaneous rewrite. I mean, I went with a solid 138 scene, 90-page script, and I would say maybe 60% of that is in the final film. And although I didn't have my editor on set, which is the first time I haven't had my editor on location, I was constantly rewriting because we were so flexible. We could be spontaneous and reacting to things that were happening either in Paris or Berlin or in Bradford. So there's a lot of just spontaneous writing, and the guy in the bar is an example.
Any other questions back there?
Yeah, I had a very serendipitous moment earlier in the movie. You know the scene, like there's the beginning scene, and then you see the residential area right after, right on the way to the airport. My house is in that shot. Was there a reason you chose that spot?
So the question is there a reason why you chose that spot?
No, I think it must have been because I sensed that an incredibly good individual lived there, and they would appear at the world premiere, and we would become lifelong friends. Right? What's your name? What is it? Lauren? Boren? See. O-R, right? Boren. Nice to meet you.
So we have a question from George.
I was wondering if Ingrid, if you actually filmed it in Berlin, Bradford, and Paris.
Wait a minute, did you watch the film? Good on you, parents, because I'm really cool. Yes, we actually shot on location at all of those places because we were showing Modra in Bradford, so I wanted to use that. And spontaneous things happened, like the guy that came to read us his poems, whose name is Moses. And then we were scheduled to screen a film called Nurse Fighter Boy, which is a CFC film that I co-wrote and produced in Berlin. So I knew we were going to go to Berlin, so I wanted to shoot stuff there. And in between, I thought we'd go to Paris. You know? Because it's a beautiful place, and I knew some beautiful people. But it was all shot on location.
Are there any other questions? Right there?
I was just wondering if this movie is made sort of as a comment on like parenthood or motherhood or like any sort of breakdown of Johnny, you look like crap. Anyway, or if you were trying to sort of subvert like feminine roles through this movie at all, or.
Okay, so the question is this movie made as a commentary on parenthood, or were you trying to subvert feminine rules?
Okay, how much time do we have? No. I'll answer that. I'll answer that just quite briefly, and I probably won't answer your whole question because it's a big one.
Yeah.
But I will say that my daughter, who's now 19, has just moved to Halifax, and she's going to King's and doing the foundation year program. And for any parent who's had to let go of their child, that's quite a struggle, you know. And it's a big process, and you've lived with someone for 19 years, and then they're sort of gone, and they're an adult, and they're out into the world. So I think I wanted to make a film about that struggle of how we hold on to the people we love, and how we have to eventually let go of them, our parents, our children, and the films we make. I mean, it's yours now. The film doesn't belong to me anymore, so how we struggle ultimately to let go of the things we create, the things we love, the people we love, and how we manage, how we how we really try to balance how we're a good person or a bad person in that process. And that's, I think, was the essence of the film. And otherwise, I'd like to talk to you for half an hour in the bar. Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Way back there.
I thought the film, Ingrid, was beautiful, and I was wondering who was, when you were in front of the camera, who was behind the camera? Because some of those shots were just really incredible. And so were you sort of saying, this is the shot I want, or were you sort of deferring to the person behind the camera at the time?
Okay, so the question is, it's a very beautiful film. When you were in front of the camera, who was behind the camera directing?
Well, yeah, again, that's a big, because it was always a little bit different. I mean, Benjamin Lichty is the cinematographer, and I'd never worked with him before, and I was amazed and impressed how connected he was to me. So, for example, when I'm handing out postcards, right, in the square, and he didn't know where I was going to go or what I was going to do. I mean, I'm just in this space, and I'm just trying to be really aware of what's going to happen, and we sort of talk about the space that I'm going to walk in, but I didn't always walk in that space, you know. So he'd have to really be, we were intuitively linked, and we would typically discuss an idea, but then the idea would change in the process of execution, and he would just have to follow, and he was amazing. And otherwise, yeah, Hallie was an incredible set of eyes. So she would always tell me if I had a dread sticking up either way. Sometimes when we were both on screen, you noticed I had like a dread sticking up like this because there was no one to say I was tucking your dread. But Hallie and Braden and Benjamin Lichty, they were the team, and they were looking out for me at all times. And I am so happy. They were an amazing powerhouse crew.
Okay, so we have time for one more question. I think there's one back there. Yeah.
Yes, this is for Sarah. I really wanted to go to your family meeting. Was it hard to stop at the door?
Yes.
So the question is for Sarah. He really wanted to go to your family meeting. Was it hard to stop it at the door?
Well, it's something I've heard a few times, or people wanted to go into the house and find out what actually gets talked about. I think what I was interested in, and I don't know, I think also Brad was, is sort of the world that the children's have, that they're often kind of kept separate from the adult world. So as an audience, you also don't get to go in and find out, to kind of mirror the kind of experience that young people often have, is not really knowing what's going on. Even though they're about to find out, we just don't get to. And I think that often is what happens to young people. They are left out of a lot of conversations, and then suddenly, you know, a bomb is dropped. I don't know. So. Okay, thank you so much.
So unfortunately, that's all we have time for. Thank you so much to Sarah, Ingrid, and your teams. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And we do have another screening immediately after, so if you guys could please exit the theater as soon as possible, that would be great. Thank you.